Welcome to PreSales Hireside Chats. Normally in these conversations, we talk with pre-sales managers around how they hire. And today we're having a slightly different conversation around careers in pre-sales, with a look at how people got into pre-sales as a profession, and also the steps they've taken afterwards and how they've kind of progressed from there. Um, so I'm really happy to say we have Gabriele Fiata with us today. Gabs is awesome. I was lucky to help Gabs get his job into SAP some years back, and I remember the feedback throughout was, "Wow, this guy's got X factor," and yeah, just really smart. Always a really interesting perspective on things, and has that excellent ability to really like bring the best out in people. So thanks for the time, Gabs.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Okay, good stuff. So, to kick things off, it would be really good to understand what you love about pre-sales.
I guess to summarize it or to say that maybe the most important thing for me or what I loved most about the pre-sales job was I guess overall it's kind of that rewarding feeling you get once you know you have done a great job, you've done a great presentation, and you can just see that look into both the customer and your colleagues' eyes. And you just feel yeah, you feel like a boss. You feel like yes, that I've done a great job, I get a great presentation, and yeah, you just have a great day. I think that feeling for me, what you get when you do such an amazing job, but you really see it, is something that no other roles that I've done so far have given me.
Okay. It's almost like the culmination of all the work comes into a short period of time, and everybody involved is around you in that moment in time. And when you get that good feedback, you feel it all.
Yeah, it's feeling like I don't know. I said, feel like a boss, you feel like a hero, you feel like um, everybody's happy. You see the customer's face, you see your colleague's face, and everybody ready to upload. That's it's just a great feeling.
Amazing, amazing, great stuff. So, should we talk through your career? Because I think this is really relevant, and I think that especially anybody listening to this that comes from a similar background to you from previous to pre-sales will be interested, and also I think it'll be interesting to talk about where you've gone since. So, could you briefly talk us through kind of the types of companies you've worked at before you moved into pre-sales?
Yes, so I would say I had a very diverse career. When I say diverse, even though it was always with security, because in my core expertise of security, or let's say security controls, audit, risk management, this is what I've done pretty much for all my career. However, um, I worked for industry and user companies. I worked for smaller boutique consulting firms, bigger Big Four consulting firms, and then finally now for a software company, SAP. And and yeah, so basically all those, even though I was working kind of the same subject matter area, I will say that all those environments were very different, and also the experiences I made in those environments were very different. If I look, for example, at PepsiCo, where I was working and leading their center of excellence for security. PepsiCo was all about looking at the big picture. It was all about the long-term planning and working with consulting firms and consultants as well as internal teams to deliver projects. But they were responsible for the project, the short-term, mid-term project. I was responsible for the big picture. So having the big picture was super important. On the other hand, when I was working as a consultant or working in the Big Four, the um, it was all about execution. It was all about delivery. You really had to deliver those midterm, short-term projects. You need to make the customer happy. Of course, if you deliver on time with quality, the customer will be happy. The company will be happy. And in both PepsiCo and KPMG, my role was very different because I was actually leading teams. I had between 10, sometimes even more than 20 people to work on a project, depending on how big the project was. And there was a lot of people management involved as well. So there was so much people management involved. You really wanted to support the people of your team, maybe even achieve their career aspirations. Um, SAP, especially in pre-sales, for me was very interesting because for the first time, I actually started my journey with a customer or with a prospect customer much before what I've done with KPMG, with Deloitte, or with PepsiCo, because with those organizations, I was actually the one implementing, the one looking at the strategy long term. With SAP, I was actually introducing customers, or I am introducing customer prospects to something new. Most of the times, it's something innovative for them. Most of the time, something that maybe they didn't even think about. So it's all about showing them the art of the possible, giving them a realistic roadmap on how to get there, and ensure that they trust you and they believe that what you are telling them is true. So it's actually with SAP, I'm almost going back to the beginning of introducing the customer to something new. Versus with PepsiCo, KPMG, and Deloitte, I was more coming later where I was implementing something that they wanted to implement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, and I suppose, and how does that translate into skills and kind of from a skills and mindset perspective? So what's important if you're in a pre-sales role at SAP, for example, versus the role you're at PepsiCo versus consulting? How was the mindset different and how and what skills do you need in each one?
Yes. So when you work in the industry, like, if I remember the times at PepsiCo, like I said before, so it was all about the long-term planning. It was also about getting a very deep expertise in the company's functional and technical processes. So you really, after a few years, few months or few years, you really knew the technical and functional processes of your organization inside out. Working with people which have been in the company for 20 plus years, where you can learn a lot about how the companies work. Um, and one very important skill, mindset, um, it was the one of, I would say, just be a great person to work with, because the more people trusted you, the better reputation you had, the more opportunities you had to then perhaps even, progress in your career, which sometimes is not as fast as it could be within a consulting firm like KPMG, where it's much more fast paced, where you need to deliver, like I said before, midterm, short term projects. You don't have time sometimes, you don't have the luxury that you have like in PepsiCo to really get very deep into a specific area. Sometimes you cannot procrastinate too much. Sometimes, you need to find the right balance between timely delivered something with the right level of
Quality.
quality, exactly, without being too much of a perfectionist, because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't have the luxury to do that. So you need to have that balance. You need to really understand when it's the time to deliver, because sometimes you have to deliver on time and have the enough level of quality to satisfy what the customer requirements are. Um, with consulting firms, especially Big Four, but I guess also boutique companies, you need to be ready to work long hours, which is good. Like I learned a lot by that. That spirit of sacrifice. Working long hours. It really helped me then later on in my career. And another very important thing about working in a Big Four is it's about being able to announce or communicate well your achievements, because sometimes there is a bit of competition and sometimes it's not so easy to get the leaders to um, take some time to really recognize the work you've done. But it's very important as a consultant that you do that, if you want to ensure that the leaders in your organization really see all the great work that you have done. So communicating, I guess it's a great skill. Now, SAP, um, it's almost a mix of both. It's almost a mix of everything that you learn or you can learn in your industry experience, so you can really understand where the customer is coming from, but also having that flexibility and being able to think quickly and execute quickly like a consultant is able to do, because that's again that's the where the made magic of pre-sales happens, when you're really able to understand the customer, so you can speak the same language of the customer, but in very little time you can capture what he wants or what they want, and then being able to, in simple terms and very quickly, show them something that they can relate to. So
Yeah.
let's say you have a presentation and a customer asks you something, or he tells you, hey, I need to do this, this, and that. This is how we work. How would you do it with your solution? And then you very quickly need to understand this question, you need to understand his perspective, where he comes from, and then translate that into a solution that he can say, okay, interesting. I can see ourselves working with this solution. So that's, I guess, one of the key skill of pre-sales.
Okay. Okay, I love it. So if I understand correctly, consulting is faster, fast paced. You need to put the work in, move fast, a little bit more political, or you need to, sorry, maybe I've put the wrong emphasis there. It's important to show your value, not just assume that it's seen. Um, Pets like industry side is a bit slower, bit more strategic, would you say? Or
Yeah, correct. Very correct. Yes, strategic.
and then SAP is kind of like halfway house. So you're talking quite strategic, you're still customer facing, you still need to be fast paced and so on, and it's somewhere in the middle in terms of pace. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, no, fair enough. And now that you were talking, I just came up with another thought, which is actually consistent across all the experiences that I had. I think there are two things I would say. Yeah, two things I would say. So the first one is 100% network. So in any experiences I had with any of those companies, being able to create an internal as well as an external network, it's just key. It's crucial. Like, network is just super important for every role. It is, it's just like that. It's You need to network. You need to ensure that you network, you really communicate, because it just opens so many doors that sometimes you didn't even imagine they could exist. And the second one is the growth mindset.
Mhm.
So where you basically, in simple words, you're always eager to learn, just learn and grow in any different aspects. It can be technical, it can be functional, it can be from a leadership perspective, it can be from a personality perspective, whatever there is, just always being able to just learn, to understand, what the points of improvements are. I think those two are key for in the two key skill set in any of those jobs.
Yeah. So basically, develop relationships and keep learning.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
exactly,
And
exactly.
um, okay, this is good. So I'm just trying to think of a way of, okay. So for example, if you were to do a pie chart of a year in pre-sales and a
Mhm.
pie chart of a year in consulting, what activities would fill both of those pie charts, broadly speaking?
So you said, so the second one was consulting. What was the first pie chart?
SAP, pre-sales.
So how would I split those in?
Yeah.
Okay, um, in terms of skills, right?
In terms of what you did day to day.
Oh, day to day. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So
So,
one might be like internal meetings, or one might be
yes,
customer.
yes. No, good question. So let's start with consulting. So consulting, I would say, depending from the project, but you will have a 50% execution, a 25% planning, and then depending on whether you are an individual contributor or whether you are a manager, so if you're a manager, you will probably do another 25% of people management. So, career progression, speak with your team, have a one-to-one with your team members. Um, if you are an individual contributor, you should, because not every consultant does it, but you should really have a 25% of thinking about why and for who you are doing what you're doing. So why are you doing it? What is it bringing you? Because if you don't do that, as a consultant, there is a risk that you get in a rabbit hole, just working hard and very long hours to firefighting and troubleshooting problems instead of thinking about your next step. And it's very important. Like I said before, it's very important that you do that when you work in consulting, because sometimes those big consulting firms, they really want you to do it. They really push you to go to the next stage. And if you want to do that, at 25% of what you do, even on a daily basis, should be about thinking, why am I doing this? Look at the big picture. So that's for consulting. SAP. SAP, I will start with. So it's interesting. So it's because I changed roles. So what I do now is very different what I did at pre-sales, because I do now I look at strategy, market strategies, and communications and messaging. But let's say pre-sales. So in pre-sales, I would say that I'll start with the smaller one. So let's say 25% learning. Maybe that's even a bit more. Let me think. So let's say 25% learning, um, 25% preparing for the next presentation that you have. So let's say you have a presentation tomorrow, so you prepare for that, or the day after tomorrow. So it's 25 learning, 25 prepare for your next presentation. And then I would say 25% discussing or working with your sales colleagues, the ones that are actually introducing you to the customer, where you will do the presentation. So working with them to ensure that the 25% of the time that you're spending preparing this meeting, it's aligned with their expectations as well. And then the last 25%, I would say, it's looking at your pipeline and ensure that after you have done the presentation tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, you have time to prepare the presentation that you have the day after, because that's very important especially if you are in a critical moment of pre-sales. Let's say you are in Q4, so you are on high demand and your solution it's high on demand, and you are a very good pre-sales. So many sales colleagues wants you to present for them. So you're on high demand. So you might have one presentation every day or one presentation every couple of days. So it's very important that you actually know that once you've done the first one, you still have time then to prepare the next one. So to recap, 25% learning, because you always learn, 25% preparing for your next meeting or presentation, 25% aligned with your sales colleagues to ensure that what you're presenting to your next session, it's what they expect, and 25% ensure that you plan for the session after next that you will have to be ready for.
I love
What
it.
do you think?
I love it. It's good. It's really good. And also, it's just, I mean, I think, 25% learning's a lot. There's not many jobs where you're doing that from my perspective.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Just to reinforce what you said, across all the experiences I had, it's the less linear job. So it's the job where you get the chance to divide your day or your week in different chunks,
yeah,
where um, where you really use your time effectively to tackle all your responsibilities. And to me, in my case, and that could be very personal, but for me it works very well. I realize that if I work a long number of hours on one type of work, after a number of hours, my efficiency decreases. What I loved about pre-sales was exactly being able to do, a couple of hours on a topic, then a couple of hours on another one, then move to another topic, and that kept my efficiency always very high, and
right.
kept my energy very high as well. So I can comfortably say that my energy has never been as high as I am since I started working for SAP.
In pre-sales. Or
Implicit.
yeah.
I think it's still high now, so my energy is still really high, even
Sorry,
though
sorry, Gabriele. That's an unfair question. I was asking that because I wanted to link it to pre-sales and not just to
oh,
SAP. But obviously, I'm sure you're getting energy from your job now. I
no,
didn't.
no, but for sure, pre-sales
Yeah,
is what started all of that. The ability to actually move from one area to another one, it really increases your energy. Yes.
yeah. Amazing, amazing. And so something we've talked about is we've talked about sales. Some people, and again, I want to focus a lot on people that come from like a big four type background. Some people from that kind of background will look and go, oh, it's got sales is the majority of the title. I don't want to be a salesperson. Whether that's right or wrong to think that, that is not, sales can be seen as a bit of a dirty word. What's your view in that respect? What would you say to somebody that says, I don't want to be so involved on the sales side?
Yes. So I think it's a common thought, especially if you come from a technical background, if you've always been seen as an expert in your career and you never had the name of sales
Yeah.
against you, then having the sales word in your title could put some people off. Even though if you work in a big four, the career evolution brings you to become a salesman, after manager, senior manager, director, towards your journey to a partner in a big four, you get asked to sell. Your metrics, your KPIs are more and more based on revenue, how much revenue you bring to your organization. So in other words, you become, kind of a salesperson. Or let's put it in this way. Sales is definitely a skill that you need to have. However, yes, so having the sales name in your title, sometimes I remember that companies try to slightly change the name of this role. So from pre-sales, they call it solution advisor, and I saw also other names being used instead of pre-sales. I think at the end, it doesn't really make a difference for the customer. I think for some individuals, it could make a difference. Maybe you don't like the sales name in your title, but for the customers, to be honest, it doesn't make any difference. And they know that you are there to sell them a solution. They know what is your role as a pre-sales versus the role of the salesperson. So the salesperson is the one, of course, that needs to then deal with the price and make a deal and the discount and all of that. The customer knows that pre-sales are actually the ones that sometimes and often can talk the language. So I think it's a term that so many companies are now used to. So many customers or prospects understand what the roles of pre-sales is, and they really, really appreciate it. Pre-sales is a role that customers appreciate because it's the role that actually supports them to understand how the solution will solve the challenge that they have. So I wouldn't really bother too much about the name, especially because you might join a company that then will not even call it pre-sales. Maybe it will be called solution advisor, maybe it will be called, product expert, etc., etc. So, it changed from company to company.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. And did you feel, because you said the customer knows what you do, and I think the focus on you're used to being the expert and everybody loves to be the expert. Somebody said to me recently, everyone loves to be the expert and everybody loves to give advice, which is true. And that's obviously a core part of the role. Do you think you have to sacrifice that in a pre-sales position? Do you think you're seen as the expert? Do you get to act as the expert? Do you get to give true advice? Is it some way tainted because you're in the sales side? What's your genuine thought there?
No, absolutely. So the roles of pre-sales for me is exactly that. And this is why customers are usually big fans of pre-sales experts at vendor companies. Because in pre-sales, you get that unique opportunity to work with the customers, show them the solution. So they really see you as the expert that understand their solution. But not only that, it's not about understanding the solution, it's also understanding them as a customer, understanding what they are looking for from a functionality perspective, and then show the art of the possible with the solution. This is something that by themselves they cannot do it, which is very different from consulting, because sometimes customers see consultants, external consultants or contractors, as some extra hands. Sometimes it's almost like, hey, I cannot do it.
Yeah.
So I need some consultants to deliver this, which sometimes is true, sometimes is not, because of course consultants can actually bring an external perspective, which could be very useful for customers. So an external perspective to what the customers do. But in pre-sales, it's even more, because in pre-sales, the customer they know what they want, but they don't know what you can do. They don't know what the art of the possible. They don't know what the solution can brings to them. They don't know what are the new innovation that can actually help them to make their life much easier. So they really look forward to the presentation where you as a pre-sales are actually able to bridge the gap between what they need and what they know actually exists in the market or exists within your solution. So it's even more than being seen as an expert. It's almost being seen as the the person that can actually show the customer what they can do. The art of the possible again, which I think is a great thing about working in pre-sales.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to me the more I talk with people about the pre-sales role, it seems to me that it is important that you're able, so the very top performers are able to really work together with the account execs and strategize and kind of between the two of them say, right, what's the game plan here? How are we going to do this? How are we going to convince the customer and so on? But at the same time, maintain the integrity of being customer oriented, customer first, solution oriented, and trying to work out the best way possible for the solution to work, if that makes sense. And that to get into the position where they can understand that and they can really communicate it well, they have to win the trust of the customer. And you do that by acting with that kind of integrity. So you kind of do both, if that makes sense. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I would say step number one. I think step number one for me, suggesting to anybody who wants to get into pre-sales. So step number one, it is get on the same page, on the same line with your customer. If that means asking questions, if that means doing some internal research before the meeting, that's step number one. Ask questions, get on the same page. Because if you ask questions, you can actually get into a conversation that allows the customer to relax and to start understanding that you know what they need, and you have the experience that they need. So having conversation with the customers, again, asking questions really, really helps us. Step number one to get that trust from the customer. And only, I would say, only when you feel that connection with the customer, you see the customer really understand that you see what they need, only at that stage, then you can go and execute with your presentation, like you said, aligned with what the expectation from your sales and then account executives are, because they also play a very important role. They know exactly what the customer needs at what stage of time. They have maybe connection. So the account executives, your colleagues, they have connection which goes beyond the people in that room that you're performing that presentation to. They know more people, so they know how to connect the dots. So if you can, one, get the customer to trust you, two, get the sales person to actually be completely aligned with you and really trust you, and you're gonna deliver what they expect, then I think you are really set up for success.
Hmm. Brilliant. And what do you, if you were again talking to somebody from a big four company and they were to say, all right, Gabs, that all sounds very good, but what's the downside? What's the negatives? What would you say?
Negative of
Pre-sales.
moving
Pre
from.
going from a role,
uh,
let's say a manager, senior manager, so you've got people reported into you, you've got, everything you've got going on a big four firm, for example, moving into a pre-sales position.
mhm. Okay. Okay, first of all, I would say, and this is kind of the thought process I did, when I went from KPMG to SAP. It's first of all understand what your um, I would say career, but also life aspirations are. What do you want to be as an adult? I would say, what do you want to be? How do you want to spend the majority of your day? You asked me a very good question about the pie chart earlier on. It's how do you want to spend your day? How do you want to spend your life really? And what are your career aspiration? Um, in a big four, most of the times, you will be targeting to become a partner. There are exceptions, of course, but from my experience, from the people that I met by working in a big four, partner is where you want to get, because partner it's ultimately the greatest achievement you can have in a big four. So, some people are really focused and they really want to get there, and they have a very clear plan on all the effort they need to make and all the sacrifice they need to make to get to that position, which of course can then be very, very rewarding, and it can open, so many different doors. So, if that's the objective, I would say, there are people that prefers to go that way. However, if like it was in my case, if there is so if you're like, first of all, you need to be very curious to go into pre-sales. So I think that's again maybe another skill that we didn't discuss earlier on. Maybe I missed that, but being curious for me, it's one of the let's call it more. It's more of a mindset than a skill. So it's one of the most important mindsets, or maybe the most important mindset you need to have when you want to go in pre-sales. It's just be curious to learn more, and which anyway, it's also great from a career perspective, because it opens, the more curious you are, the more you learn, and the more you open yourselves so many doors for different type of jobs. So you need to be curious, and then you also need to be willing to get into an organization, maybe starting as a pre-sales, but then evolve in something different. Because the nature of pre-sales, which like we discussed before, it's a role where you need to have so many different skill sets. It's probably the role in a vendor company that needs to be that requires the more variety of different skills in order to perform as its best. So if you are ready to actually learn so much and use all those different skills that you need to perform as a pre-sales, and you are also open to then go maybe and find a different job within the organization, that can be sales, it can be marketing, it can be solution management, it can be product management. I mean, honestly, I've seen people, especially at SAP, going from pre-sales to very different roles. Then if you want to do that and you are open-minded to do that, then I would say don't think twice. I mean, it's personally the best choice I made in my career. I am never been so happy. I never had so much passion for what I do, and that's John. I would say also thanks to you, because before you sent me that message years ago, I have to say I will never even thought about going into a pre-sales role. It didn't even cross my mind. So
Amazing, amazing. Well, hopefully we can pass that on as well, a bit of that feeling. Because that's the idea of this conversation as well, because it is, as they say, the best job that no one's ever heard of.
yeah.
So that's great. And then, okay, so we're short on time. So just as the very last question, could you just walk us through what you're doing now and how your work in pre-sales helped you move into that role, and the skills that you've taken with you into the role? Like, what have you learned that you think you'll use throughout the rest of your career?
Yes. Yes. So I'll just summarize my role in a nutshell, because my role is quite unique as a role in a vendor company. So I'm responsible to define the market strategy for our security offering in the cloud for SAP. And within that, one of my main goals and mission is the one of creating more awareness about all the great things and advantages that we bring to our customers for security and compliance in the cloud. And how do I do that? Or how am I supposed to do that? I'm supposed to do that having one-to-one customers conversation, having one-to-many customers conversations, for example, webinars, or for example, conferences, and also leverage the online platforms or social media, which nowadays is very popular, to spread the message, so that people and customers or prospects can see more and understand more on how we do security or what we do for security and compliance. In order to be, and of course, I'm learning a lot. This is all very new for me, so I'm learning every day. And in order to be successful with that, there is something that I've learned from pre-sales, which is the art of storytelling. Um, Now, storytelling is a term that I heard some people don't really like because it's like, oh, you're telling me a story, you're telling me just something that maybe could not be true, which is actually not the point of storytelling. Storytelling is actually all about, for me, it's all about simplifying a very complex message and make it digestible for a very fast-paced world, which is the world where we live now, which is very online. It's very fast, where sometimes people don't have the time to read a 200 pages document to understand why would your solution, why would your offering change my life. So what I learned in pre-sales is that sometimes you have a 1 hour meeting to convince that customer that with the solution that you sell, you can change their life, you can make their life better. And in order to do that, you cannot show them or tell them the thousands and thousands of fantastic things that your solution does. So it's all about creating an emotion for them. So it's all about really talk to their heart and really understand what's painful for them right now, or it could be actually what's painful for them right now, or it could be what's their dream. What will really make them happy, and then in very simple words, summarize or show them how your solution, your offering will make them happy. Regardless whether that's a one-to-one customer presentation or that's a one-to-many conference presentation, a webinar, a podcast, a video, whatever that is, talk to the heart, create an emotion for them, and especially in the world where we're living right now, in a short time, communication needs to be very efficient, very effective. So that's I don't know if that makes sense. That's what I would say is for me the in a nutshell how pre-sales has helped my current job.
I love it. So basically, synthesizing a lot of information into a short package that can be understood easily, and the customer can say, "I get it." And that's something that in pre-sales is important. And then your job now, you're doing it like on a one-to-many basis. And I assume in any kind of role where you have interaction with human beings, that's a good skill to have.
Exactly, and you summarize it even better than me. It's that it's all about giving them what's enough for them to want to know more. Because the first thing is, do you want to know more as a customer, as a person? If you don't want to know more, then there isn't a need to show a 200 pages document or a 200 pages presentation. First is like, this is what we do. This is how we make your life better. Do you want to know more? If the answer is yes, then there are the next stages, then there are the next steps. But the first step, the one of creating that need, creating that, do you want to know more? It's for me crucial from pre-sales to the role that I'm doing now in market strategy.
Yeah, yeah, especially in the modern world. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. So before we close off, is there anything that you wanted that you think's important to add that we haven't discussed? Is there anything else you would just floors open to add anything you want to add, basically?
No, I'll just say, like I said before, it's sometimes people don't even think pre-sales could be for them. That was my case when I was working in a consulting firm, and my road was towards the top of the ladder of a big four. And I said, hey, this sounds interesting. I took maybe a little bit of a risk to go into it, but like I said before, was the best choice of my life.
Amazing. I love it. What a great way to finish. Thank you so much, Gabs.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Ciao.